Hey everyone! Today we're diving into something really cool. A system that starts with something as basic as farming and ends up being about the very fabric of human destiny. Seriously, it all begins with just planting a seed, but it ends with forging an entirely new future.
So let's kick things off with a big question, one that really gets you thinking. What if progress isn't really about what you build, but who you build it with? Just let that simmer in the back of your mind as we go through this, okay?
Okay, so picture this. You're in a game, right? You've just crushed the hunting and gathering phase. You know how to survive. Then, boom, a notification pops up. You've unlocked the next level, subsistence farming. Suddenly, the game's not just about surviving day to day anymore. It's about settling down, putting down roots, and actually building something.
And of course, a new level means a new skill to master. This one's called Leo. Yep, just like the constellation of the lion.
All right, so let's get into the nitty-gritty of this Leo system. What is it? How does it even work? What's it measuring?
So, you might remember the last system, the one for hunting? That was called Libra, and it used a horizontal scale, right? Left to right. But check this out. Leo, the system for farming, completely flips that. It's now vertical. And believe it or not, that one simple change in direction, well, that's the key to this whole thing. So here's the breakdown. The whole scale is centered on what it calls ground level. Makes sense, right? A crop like a potato, well, that's going to register below ground. Something like an onion, that registers above. And the further away from that center point, either up or down, the more sustenance that crop gives you. It's a super literal way of measuring how deep its roots go and how high it reaches.
Okay, so the mechanics are pretty straightforward. But that leaves us with a huge question, doesn't it? Leo, the lion. What in the world does a top predator, the king of the jungle, have to do with farming, with planting seeds and tending to crops? It feels totally random.
Well, the answer isn't about a single lion. It's about the group. And this right here is where things start to get really interesting.
Think about it. What do you call a group of lions? A pride. And in the logic of this story, that word pride isn't just some random label. It's a definition. One of the characters puts it perfectly. Pride is family. And boom, right there, that's the first major key to unlocking this whole system.
And what's so cool is that this game mechanic is basically mirroring our own history. The agricultural revolution, right? That huge moment when we switched from hunting to farming, that was also the exact moment we started to form bigger, more permanent family groups. The system is literally connecting the act of farming to the need for family.
And this theme, this idea of family shaping who you are, it's woven all through the story. You see it everywhere. Different families have these symbols that stand for a core virtue. You got the dragon for fortitude, the hound for instinct, Pendragon for wisdom. And for our main character, Leo, literally represents family itself. It's like progress is always being guided by these strengths you inherit.
But what's the end game? What do all these family virtues actually lead to? This is where the meaning of Leo just explodes beyond the idea of a simple household. We're getting into some seriously metaphysical territory here. It's not just about family anymore. It's about what family makes it possible for us to become.
So, in the kind of elemental language of this world, the Leo constellation stands for two things: family and grace. It's all about this concept of breaking limits, but not on your own. You do it through teamwork, through the knowledge passed down to you, what the story calls force enhancers. Basically, it's saying your family, your community, they give you the support, that grace, to go beyond what you could ever do alone.
The story has this really cool way of showing this by kind of reinterpreting old myths. For instance, it brings up how the word carpenter in some ancient stories might not have meant a guy who works with wood. Instead, it might have meant an engineer, someone chosen to be a protector, an instrument of defense for their people, for their family.
And all of this leads to what the story calls the great paradox of being human. See, the ultimate goal, the destiny of mankind, is to become like its creator, to become godlike. But here's the catch. The way we go about it is all wrong. In our race to get there, we often push away the very things we need, that grace, that connection, basically throwing away the goal while we're chasing it.
So, how do we solve that paradox? How do we fix this? Well, the final piece of this whole puzzle, this massive allegory, uses the birth of technology, specifically cooking and making metals, to show us the way.
And the metaphor they use here is, wow, it's so vivid. Picture humanity being put on a grill. We start out as raw meat, totally vulnerable. The grill itself, that's the creator's inquisition,
A whole series of tests. The seasoning they sprinkle on, that's all the hard, painful lessons of history. And the whole point of this grilling, refinement, to cook us into something better, more perfect.
And get this, that first grill, it's made of iron. The story says the original word for iron, ferrum, can be translated as a drunken application of justice. It's basically an insult from the creator, a direct challenge to mankind's pride. The message is almost like, hey, you don't like this flawed material? You think this justice is sloppy? Fine, build something better yourself. Our own pride becomes the very tool that pushes us to improve.
And humanity, with all its ingenuity, finds the answer: alloys. You take these basic elements, and each one has its own weakness, right? Like iron, it rusts. But you fuse them together, and what do you get? A totally superior material, like stainless steel, that cancels out the flaws of the original parts. And here it is. This is the final beautiful connection that ties it all together. Individuals are just like those base elements. We all have our own strengths, our own flaws. Then, two people come together. Each one has something the other lacks. They fuse. And their child? That child is the result. A brand new alloy. A more complete piece of the puzzle than either parent could ever be on their own.
And that's how it all clicks into place. Family lines are the alloys of humanity. All of history is just this repeated process of fusion. Each new generation is a better, stronger material, built from the one before it. All of us reaching for some ultimate ideal, a perfect, refined state. It all comes back to family.
So that leaves us with one last massive thought to chew on. If a family is an alloy, and every generation is just a refinement of the last, then could it be that all of human history is just a slow, sometimes painful, but ultimately beautiful process of forging a better version of ourselves?